Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, accompanied by Senator Sam Nunn, Congressman Stanford Bishop, Governor Zell Miller, Mayor Jim Marshall, and Richard Gallo.
What a great day for Middle Georgia. I'd like to welcome all of the elected officials and party officials, party leaders who haven't been recognized so far. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you, everybody, for coming. This is a great day. It's a great event. In the back, I tried to give the president a whoopee shirt. And the president said I needed to give him the whoopee shirt right out here in public. So, Mr. President, if you would come up. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess you're wondering why we invited you. We want your votes. This is a campaign event. We want not just your votes, we want the votes of everybody. We want those votes not just for our president, but for all of our fine Democratic candidates, federal, state, local, running throughout this state. Everybody votes. Ladies and gentlemen, we've suffered through several years of mean-spirited rhetoric coming out of Congress. We've got a president with a proven, conservative, fiscally sound economic course for this country. If everybody votes, we've got a chance to turn our nation around and bring it into the 21st century, recognizing that this nation is not just a nation of the people, not just a nation by the people, but it is a nation for the people. Bill Clinton and the Democratic Party know that. All I ask is everybody votes. Everybody votes. Everybody votes. Everybody votes. Everybody votes. y'all can go to sleep on November 6th, but nobody gets to sleep between now and November 6th. We got a bunch of people to get elected, and we have to do it. Now, I think most of you have noticed we got a sign up here, President Clinton keeping America's streets safe, Macon, Georgia. This administration has a strong record on crime. As a result of this administration, we have some AmeriCorps cadets that we wouldn't have had policing our streets, making our neighborhoods safer. This administration has been recognized for its record on crime and has received the endorsement of many different agencies associated with the police, and I am very proud and very honored to introduce today Mr. Richard Gallo, National Vice President of the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, who has something to say to this fine crowd. Mr. Gallo.
Mr. President, on behalf of the over 55,000 members of the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, it is a great honor to stand here with you today. Every day we put our lives on the line for our families, our friends, and even for strangers. That is what our profession is all about, the safety of others. But as you might expect it, Mr. President, we in law enforcement are a skeptical bunch by nature. And year after year, we have heard the same rhetoric from Washington. Get tough on crime speeches with little substance and absolutely no follow-through. So 4 years ago, our organization decided to take a chance. Based on the commitments you made to us, we endorsed your candidacy for president in 1992. We were the first national law enforcement union in the country to do so. Quite frankly, Mr. President, it was a little lonely out there at first. But over the last 4 years, we worked side by side with you to make your commitments a reality. And we've come a long way. Today, we stand beside you as true believers. During this period of time, you put together an anti-crime, pro-law enforcement record, the likes of which we never have seen before. You promised to end congressional gridlock, and you did. You promised to fund 100,000 new police officers on our streets, and you did. You promised to veto Republican efforts to cut law enforcement programs, and you did. You promised to pass a death penalty for cop killers, and you did. I could go on for issue after issue, battle after battle, and year after year. You have stood and delivered for us. Mr. President, you're a man of your word. Your programs and support are reducing crime, making our country safer, and saving lives. And no question about it, the leadership you have shown on our issues will never, ever be forgotten. You, more than any other president, have understood law enforcement. You listened to us, and your policies have made a difference. You have been loyal to us, and today we want to show our loyalty to you. That is why I am proud to inform you that once again, the International Brotherhood of Police Officers strongly endorses you for president. Four years ago, we took a chance. Today, we are taking no chance. Today, we stand with a friend who delivers on his promises. This country and law enforcement needs and deserves 4 more years of Bill Clinton. And yes, indeed, Mr. President, the answer to the question is law enforcement better off than it was 4 years ago? Yes, it is. Mr. President, on behalf of the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, we look forward to working with you side by side in the next 4 years as we continue to reduce crime in our cities and our towns. Thank you for being there when we needed you. You are truly law enforcement's best friend.
I have bad news. we're going to lose Sanford Bishop as our congressman. But our loss is going to be another district's gain. Sanford Bishop is with us today. It's my honor to introduce him. Sanford has been somebody who has worked tirelessly for his constituents here in Macon. He has been a great asset to this city. And the redistricting, he won't be working for us directly, but I know he'll continue to be a friend. He'll continue to help us. Congressman Bishop, it's an honor to have you here, sir. It's an honor to have worked with you.
It's indeed a pleasure for me to be back in Macon. It certainly makes me feel a great sense of sadness, but I'm happy to see so many faces here for this special occasion as we welcome our president. I want to greet you and let you know that it has certainly been an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege for me to be your representative. And even though I will not directly be representing you, I want you to know that the people here in Macon and all of Middle Georgia will still be dear to my heart, and I still belong to you. I'm very proud of the record of this administration. I'm very proud to say that here alone in Middle Georgia, we have worked with the administration, with the president, and we've been able to put 158 new officers on the streets here in Middle and South Georgia. This is a tough-on-crime administration, and my job this afternoon is to present to you the governor. The governor, Zell Miller, who is a tremendous leader for Georgia, but who is a tremendous friend to our president. Zell Miller was chairman of the platform committee for our national party, and he did an excellent job. And the job that he has done has set the course for the rest of this century as we go into the next millennium. And so without further ado, I'd like to present to you a man who has the ear of the president, who has shared ideas, Georgia ideas, with the president, such as tough on crime, 2 strikes you're out, such as welfare reform, such as balanced budget, such as all of the good things that make for good common sense values. Don't think that we can say anything about our governor without saying that he is the education governor. And certainly, if there's anything that he will ever be remembered for, and there are many things, it is education, the HOPE program. And now, because of HOPE in Georgia, we are going to have, through Bill Clinton and the Democratic Party, HOPE in America. I present to you the governor of the state of Georgia, Zell Miller.
I see you, Kay. Thank you very much, my good friend and our great Congressman Sanford Bishop. And Mayor Jim Marshall, it's good to be back in Macon, and thank you for being the Democrat who started the Democrat comeback in this state. I am proud to be with you and Sam Nunn and Sanford Bishop and Jim Wiggins and Rosemary Kazans and Robert Brown and Larry Justice and all these Democrats as we welcome our great president back to Georgia and back to the city of Macon. President Clinton carried this state and this region in 1992, and if you will do what Mayor Marshall said, work for the next 11 days, we're going to carry it again. There's an old saying that if you ever see a turtle on a fence post, you know one thing, it didn't get there by itself. Somebody put it there. You don't get elected governor by yourself, or U.S. senator or congressman or even president by yourself. Somebody has to put you there, and you're the ones who can put these Democrats there. Another person who put this old turtle on a fence post was my mother. My mother raised me as a single parent with strength and with love and with faith. And she used to say something. She would say, "Take what you want, saith the Lord. Take it and pay for it." I was a grown man before I realized that's not in the Bible. But that was my mama's scripture. She believed it, that you can do anything you want in this world, but you've got to work for it. And she worked her hands to the bone because she believed that if you gave just a little bit more today, her children would have a lot more tomorrow. And that's what this election is all about. It's not about what we can do to recapture the past. It's about what we can do to make a better future for our children. It's not about finding somebody else to blame for our problems. It's about joining together to solve those problems. Have you ever noticed that the first thing the Republicans do about a problem, any problem, is to blame somebody else for that problem? Whatever the problem is, it was always caused by them. Them, the liberals. Them, the women. Them, the minorities. Them, the Democrats. Them, the government. Them. Like Jim Marshall said, whatever happened to we, the people? Our vision as Democrats is simple but profound. Opportunity for all, responsibility from all, and a stronger sense of community and of the traditional values that made this nation great. That is why we must re-elect Bill Clinton. And now, to present our president, our senior senator, just back from Russia. He has given this state and this nation for a quarter of a century great, dignified, and distinguished service. One of the greatest U.S. senators in this century, and one of the greatest Georgians in any century, Senator Sam Nunn.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you very much, Governor Miller, Senator Brown, Mayor Marshall, Chairman Justice, Congressman Sanford Bishop, who is going to win in his new district just like he did in his old district because he's a great congressman. My good friend and your former U.S. Attorney, I was very proud to recommend to President Clinton that Jimmy Wiggins become the U.S. Attorney for this area. He did a terrific job, and he's going to do a great job as a United States Congressman. Jimmy Wiggins. I am honored to introduce President Bill Clinton today, not in my role as a Georgia elected official, but rather as a citizen returning home, with great care and great concern about the future of our state and the future of our nation. Let's think back just a few months when Atlanta and Georgia faced one of our greatest challenges of modern times, hosting the world, the whole world spotlight looking right down on us with the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games. President Bill Clinton and his entire administration were helping us every step of the way, and we appreciate it. Let's think back a couple of years when we in Middle Georgia faced our most devastating natural disaster in modern times, the Great Flood of 1994. Our guest of honor did not just stay in the White House and issue press releases from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. He came to Georgia more than once. He rolled up his sleeves and he helped us every step of the way with recovery. And we appreciate it, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm not sure we can adequately express our thanks today, although I see these familiar faces in the crowd, and I believe that's what they're here to say, is that we appreciate you and we thank you. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. I even see a familiar parasol, and I think Eunice Mixon is under it. Come on out, Eunice, the sun's going down. Mr. President, we can't adequately thank you today, but I do believe that 13 electoral votes from the state of Georgia on November the 5th will be a pretty good way of saying thank you. Mr. President, I understand your opposition is having a little trouble these days. Down in the polls, or as Senator Dole might say in his own unique fashion, whatever. They can't quite figure it out. I think we should help them come to grips with their problems by giving them a few answers today. We can remind them of what's been happening for the last 4 years. The longest period of sustained, stable, low inflation, low employment growth since the early 1960s. A misery index of unemployment and inflation so low that those of us who remember the days of double digits in both categories can barely believe our eyes. The budget deficit down 4 consecutive years and a corresponding reduction in unneeded federal bureaucracy. Record corporate profits, record number of new business startups, record gains in the stock market, job growth exceeding all the other industrial countries in the world combined, an economy in America rated the most competitive economy in the world today. That's what's happened in the last 4 years. A country at peace with its neighbors, respected by its friends, and even respected by its enemies, and envied by those, even those who hate us. The Earth's last remaining superpower, and also under President Bill Clinton, its most active peacekeeper. A defense structure that is making the difficult transition from the Cold War to the information age, with America maintaining its leadership in the new age of information, just as we did during the Cold War period. A military force made up of men and women who are the best in the world in dedication, in skill training, and in patriotism. And a very attentive Clinton administration Pentagon working every day to help those who are leaving the military acquire the skills and the jobs to transition to a civilian economy. Mr. President, you are in Air Force country here in Middle Georgia. We are proud that the C-17 important components of that great airplane are built right here in Macon, Georgia. You have funded that program for the next 7 years. It's probably one of the best funded, most important programs we have, and Macon employees are playing a big role. We're also proud that we have the B-1 operational unit that is going into Robins Air Force Base with a National Guard, a wonderful Air National Guard here in Georgia, manning those B-1s. We are proud that the JSTARS program, a very important surveillance program that proved its worth during the Persian Gulf War, is going to have the operational headquarters for JSTARS right down the road at Warner Robins. We're very proud of that. We also continue to be proud that we have the best logistics center in the world, with a fighter center, an avionics center, and also an airlift center at Robins Air Force Base, where many people in this crowd work or have families who do. In short, Mr. President, all of these are reasons, and a lot of these people in the crowd comprise the workforce there, and they are the primary reason that you selected Warner Robins Air Force Base as the best Air Force base in the world about a year ago. A couple of other things that we should remind our Republicans that frustrated, wondering why their polls are not going up. Violent crime rates are dropping in nearly every major city in America. FBI statistics show crime at a 10-year low, in no small part due to a federal government that has stopped handcuffing the police and is now helping to hire more of them, as the mayor said, for community policing. The beginning of the end to a system of welfare that has trapped whole generations of Americans in dependence and despair, and the beginning of a system of employment to get them back on their feet with good jobs in the private sector. A resolute commitment to a program of national service coming from President Clinton, capturing the energy of our most vital resource in America, our young people, and a dynamic program of support to family and community as the building blocks of our society. In short, the federal government has stopped trying to replace the family and the community and is instead giving both a helping hand in solving their own problems. Is it any wonder, after listening to just a few of these facts, that the Republican opposition is having a problem in 1996? Now, all of you remember the campaigns in the past. If a Republican president had a record like this, would they be saying that the American dream is endangered? Would they be saying liberal, liberal, liberal with a record like this? We all know what they would be saying 10,000 times a day. They would be saying, it's morning in America. That's what they would be saying. They'd say that America is finally on the right track again. They'd say we need 4 more years of this administration. And guess what? They'd be right for a change. All of us know that America faces many challenges in the next 4 years. Preparing for the retirement of the baby boom generation with entitlement reform, which has to be done with sensitivity, but it has to be done. Preparing for the future economic growth with tax reform, increasing the incentive for people to be able to save more of their own money. Preparing for new threats to our security and our freedom in a world grown suddenly small through the information technology. Mr. President, most of all, you're making the world safer for our children and for our grandchildren. Just a week ago today, I accompanied Secretary of Defense Bill Perry, Senator Lugar, and Senator Lieberman to a submarine base in northern Russia, where a ballistic missile submarine that a few years ago was patrolling off the coast of Georgia, ready to basically fire missiles that would have dispersed nuclear warheads all over the southeast United States. We watched last week as that same submarine was being turned into scrap metal with a huge piece of equipment built by Harris Machinery Company in Cordele, Georgia. Mr. President, 48 hours ago, Senator Lugar and I were given 2 tiny but deadly keys, and I have mine right here, to destroy a former Soviet missile silo at a missile base in Ukraine, formerly part of the Soviet Union. Now, this silo, before the warhead was removed, and we didn't shoot this with the warhead in it, I'll tell you that, it had 6 warheads on that missile. Those 6 warheads that this key control could have destroyed every sizable city in this state, that one silo. I thank God, Mr. President, that I've been in the United States Senate long enough to begin to see these weapons of mass destruction turned into the scrap iron, and as the Bible promised, plowshares. Think of it, this one key could have basically destroyed much of mankind, and it's now being destroyed under the leadership of President Clinton, working with those countries in the former Soviet Union. Under your leadership, Mr. President, and that of your Secretary of Defense, Bill Perry, 2 nuclear states, Ukraine and Kazakhstan, have now given up every one of their nuclear weapons. 1 more nuclear state, Belarus, will follow and have no nuclear weapons by the end of this year. Thousands of warheads have been dismantled, hundreds of missiles and bombers have been destroyed, and tons of weapons-grade nuclear material that would be sought by rogue countries and terrorist groups is now being handled safely. My bottom line, fellow Georgians, we are most fortunate at this critical turning point in our history to have a leader like President Bill Clinton, who fully understands the powerful forces shaping our history at home and abroad. He understands the opportunity, he understands the perils, he understands the dangers. He is a leader who is not only building a bridge to the 21st century, but who most importantly insists that all Americans cross that bridge together. Fellow Georgians, the President of the United States
Thank you. Hello, Macon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, thank you for a beautiful day in a beautiful city. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the Macon Whoopee hockey jersey. You know, tomorrow's Hillary's birthday. Maybe I ought to give that to her. If that gets on the news before I get home tonight, I'm in deep trouble. I want to thank all of our musicians here, the Central High School Marching Charger Band, the Northeast High School Raider Band. I thank the Community Church of God Choir, the New Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church Choir, the Swift Creek Church Choir. Thank you all. I thank the mayor again for welcoming me here. I thank Mayor Floyd Adams, who's come all the way from Savannah to be with us, one of the most beautiful cities in America. Thank you. I thank the legislators and the others who are here. I thank Rosemary Kazans, who's running for Congress in Georgia, and wish her well. I want to say a special word of thanks to the person who seeks to be your congressman here, Jim Wiggins. Jim Wiggins is really what a member of Congress from this district ought to be: a distinguished American veteran, a distinguished prosecuting attorney who did an excellent job as the United States Attorney here. I frankly hated to lose him in that position, but I was proud of him for coming back home and wanting to run for Congress to try to give this district to the people of Georgia and to its future. Thank you, Jim Wiggins, for your Thank you, Richard Gallo and the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, for your support. One of the most moving things to me in this election has been to have every major law enforcement organization in the country endorse 4 more years for Bill Clinton and Al Gore. We're making the streets of this country safer. If you give us 4 more years, we'll do a better job, and people will feel safe in their streets, in their neighborhoods, and in their schools. I want to say a special word of thanks, too, to Congressman Sanford Bishop. What a fine, fine member of Congress he has been. He will be an even greater member of Congress when you give a young man like him some more terms, some more experience, and greater capacity to help this state, his district, and the people. So if any of you here live in his new district, give him a boost. He's earned it. You need to help him. Thank you, Sanford Bishop. There are some people here, too. I know that Herschel Gober, the Deputy Director of the Department of Veterans Administration, and Mary Lou Kent are up here on the stage. There are veterans for Clinton Gore taking caravans all through Georgia. Thank you very much. There they are over there. Thank you. I treasure your support. I want to say now a special word about my friend Governor Zell Miller. Zell Miller spoke at the '92 convention about growing up in a house his mother built herself with her own hands. It was about the most moving talk I ever heard at one of those political conventions, maybe because it was so personal, so human, and because the political positions that Zell Miller holds flow out of the experience of his life. He's been a teacher, a United States Marine, and a brilliant, brilliant governor of Georgia. He wrote the new platform that the Democrats are running on, and I got so tickled when our friends met in San Diego and their nominee, my opponent, they said, well, what about this platform? You agree with the things in this platform? And he said, oh, I haven't read it. They were running from their platform, just like they're running from what they did in 1995 and early 96. Well, I want to tell you something, folks. I'm not running from the platform Zell Miller wrote. I'm running on it, and I'm proud of the new Democratic Party that he's helped to chart. I was honored to take Zell Miller to Princeton University with me when I proposed an American version of Georgia's Hope Scholarships to make 2 years of college as universal in America as a high school diploma is today, and I thank you, Zell Miller, for that as well. And I want to thank Senator Sam Nunn for his early support, for the ideas he has contributed to our administration, for the work that he's done to make sure our military remains the strongest in the world, and the many, many contributions he has made to making Georgia and America a better place. There are some AmeriCorps folks out here. Sam Nunn was out there supporting national service before I became president, and when I got in office, I was able to take the advocacy that Sam Nunn had had for so long, and now we've given 60,000 Americans a chance to serve in their local community, to solve problems at the grassroots level, and pay their way through college. Thank you, Sam Nunn. Senator Nunn told you that very moving story about seeing the Russian nuclear sub destroyed, but he was characteristically too modest. I wrote him a letter the other day and I said, Senator, when the history of this era is written and people talk about how the Cold War came to an end and how we moved into a bright new day of security, the name of Sam Nunn will loom large, because it was Sam Nunn's leadership, along with Senator Dick Lugar, that got the funds through Congress that helped us to contribute to the effort to make sure that the nuclear missiles were removed from the non-Russian republics of the former Soviet Union, and helped us to reduce nuclear arsenals by 2/3, and helped make sure that today, as we stand here in Macon, Georgia, there are no Russian missiles targeted at the United States of America. Thank you, Sam Nunn. I want to thank those of you who have anything to do with Robins Air Force Base. It did win the President's Award as the finest Air Force base in the world last year. It will be the home of the 19 new J-Stars, which I saw yesterday, the place where they're made in Louisiana. It will get 1,500 new high-skilled, high-wage jobs as a result of the base realignment. Those of you who are making the C-17 need to know that I flew into Bosnia on one. It is unquestionably the finest transport plane in the entire world. You should be proud of your contributions here to the nation's defense and the future security and peace of the world. Thank you very much. My fellow Americans, it's only 11 days till we vote on the last president of the 20th century, and more importantly, the first president of the 21st century. We are on the right track. I said in 1992 when I came here, if you'd give me a chance to serve, we would change politics as usual in Washington. We'd get out of all this name calling. We'd stop pointing our fingers and saying who's to blame, and we'd start saying, what are we going to do to make America a better place together? And that's what we've done. We could build a new majority in America on 3 principles. opportunity for all, responsibility from all, and an American community where if you show up for work tomorrow and you believe in our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our Declaration of Independence, we don't need to know anything else about you. You're a part of our American community, and we're going forward together. You heard Senator Nunn say it. We are on the right track. Compared to 4 years ago, we are better off. And our opponents would be saying it is morning in America if they had this record. We do have 10.5 million more jobs. We have the highest rate of home ownership in 15 years. We have incomes going up for the first time in 20 years for middle-income working people. We have the lowest rate of poverty ever recorded for American seniors and for African Americans. We've got the biggest drop in childhood poverty in 20 years. We're moving in the right direction. There are nearly 2 million fewer people on welfare than there were the day I became President of the United States, and I'm proud of that. And one of the reasons is that we've increased collection of child support that absent parents owe their children by 50%, and I'm proud of that. We've cleaned up more toxic waste sites in 3.5 years than the people before us did in 12. And they talk about being conservative. Listen to this, folks. We reduced the deficit in each year of this administration, all 4 years. That's the first time that's happened in the 20th century. They talk about being against big government. Our administration has reduced the size of the government, the number of government programs, the number of government regulations, and we have privatized more government operations in 3.5 years than the previous 2 Republican administrations did in 12. We're moving in the right direction to the 21st century. But there is a difference. What I'm trying to do is to give you a smaller and less bureaucratic government in Washington, but one that is strong enough to help give you the tools to make the most of your own lives, care for each other and your families and communities, deal with emergencies as they arise, and protect America in the new environment of the 21st century. The best days of this country are still ahead. Don't let anybody kid you. Our best days are still ahead. The young people in this audience, and I'm glad to see so many young people here, this election is about you. The children in this audience will be doing, many of the children in this audience today will be doing jobs that have not been invented yet. Some of the children in this audience will be doing jobs that have not been imagined yet. We were just in Atlanta. We had a great rally there, and one of our speakers was an attractive young mother from Georgia. She and her husband lived in New York, and he got an opportunity to come back to Georgia. She wanted to go home in the worst way, and because of computer technology, she didn't have to leave her job. She just left her place of work. She still works for the same company in New York she worked for when she lived in New York. Now she can live in Atlanta, and she thinks it's a good deal. She thinks it's a good deal. There were 3 million people doing that when I became president. Today there are over 12 million. By the 21st century, when we start that new century, there'll be over 30 million people working at home because of computers and technology where they can take care of their kids and succeed at their work. This world is changing, folks. This whole world is changing. And, you know, I appreciate what Senator Nunn said about our record, but the real issue is, what kind of future are we going to build? I never will forget once in 1984, I was running for re-election as governor, and I was going on and on about my record. And I was out in a little country crossroads giving a talk, and the fellow that sort of represented me was in his overalls leaning up against a tree in the shade, and I was giving a speech. Frankly, I thought it was one of the best talks I ever gave. I thought I was terrific, frankly. And after it was over, I shook hands and I ambled over to my friend and I said, "Well, how'd I do?" He said, "Well, that's a pretty good speech. You told us all about what you did." But he said, "Now, Bill, tell the truth." He said, "That's what we hired you to do, a good job. You drew a paycheck every 2 weeks, didn't you?" He said, "You can't expect us to re-elect you because you did what you were supposed to do. What are you going to do next time? That's what really matters." You could hardly have a clearer choice. You can read the platform Zell Miller wrote if you want to know what we're going to do next time. I wish I could have printed up enough copies to give it to every American citizen. It's not very long, it's a good read, and it says what we stand for and what we're going to do. And you have this huge choice. Do you believe that we're better off being told we're on our own, there is no we the people? Or do you believe it does take a village to raise our children and build a future for America? Do you believe that we can really reach back and build a bridge to the past? Or shouldn't we build a bridge to the 21st century we can all walk across together? Do you want to balance the budget in a way that protects our obligations to the elderly, to families with members with disabilities, to our poorest children, to protect the environment, to invest in education, to grow the economy and keep interest rates down? Or do you want some risky tax scheme that sounds great at election time, but it'll blow a hole in the deficit, require bigger cuts in Medicare, Medicaid, education, and the environment that I vetoed last year? And their plan to boot actually raises taxes on 9 million hardworking Americans. I think I know the answer to that. We want to build a bridge to the 21st century. Let's balance the budget, grow the economy, and invest in our future. I think one of the most important things that we can do to fulfill our values of work and faith and family is to help folks who are working and who have children to succeed as parents and as workers. All over America, I can go to any crowd, virtually any income group, and people tell me over and over again their stories of times when they've been worried about how they could fill their obligations to their children or their parents and do what they're supposed to do at work. The family and medical leave law, which our opponents opposed, has given 12 million Americans a chance to take a little time off from work when a baby was born or a parent was sick or a spouse was sick without losing their jobs. We're a stronger country because of it. And I want to expand that law in a modest way to say that folks ought to be able to take a little time off to take their kids to regular doctor's appointments or go to the school twice a year and see the teacher and see how their kids are doing. I think it'll make us a stronger country. But you have to decide. You will decide what we're going to do about health care. We worked hard to try to protect the American people's ability to buy and keep health care. In the last few weeks of this Congress, finally, we passed 2 bills that I've been working hard for. One says you can't lose your health insurance anymore just because you change jobs or somebody in your family gets sick. The other bill says an insurance company can no longer force a hospital to kick a new mother and a newborn baby out of the hospital after only 1 day. Another part of what we did at long last says to Vietnam veterans who served their country in Vietnam and were exposed to Agent Orange, whose children were born with a terrible disease, spina bifida, finally, after 20 years, we're going to give you the medical support and the disability payments you deserve to help you with your families. Our veterans should not be punished through not being able to take care of their kids who are injured through their own service. So we're moving in the right direction. But my balanced budget plan will help families when they're between jobs keep their health insurance for another 6 months. We'll add another 1 million children to the ranks of people who have health insurance. We'll provide for mammograms for women on Medicare to help save their lives. And for families that are taking care of family members with Alzheimer's, over 1.5 million of them in America today, we'll give them a little respite care so they can keep their parents at home and still keep their families together and their sanity. It's a good program. We need to keep on going. But you have to decide. You will decide whether we keep our work up to clean up the environment or whether we buy a theory that says you can't grow the economy and preserve the environment. Let me tell you, folks, we can't grow the economy unless we preserve the environment. It is the key to our future. All over the world today, American companies are creating jobs for Americans here at home, helping other countries to avoid their environmental problems with new technologies. If you will give us 4 more years, we're going to clean up 500 more toxic waste dumps so our kids will be growing up next to parks, not poisons. We need your help to build that bridge to the 21st century. The most important thing we can do is to give you a safe, strong learning environment. I have worked hard to make our streets safer, but we're only halfway home.
That 100,000 police program, it's a 5-year program. We funded about half the police, and the departments are training them and putting them on the streets. The question is, should we finish? You heard Senator Nunn say we've got the lowest crime rate in 10 years. The crime rate in America has gone down for 4 years in a row. That's the good news. But there are problems out there. Juvenile gangs are growing at a rapid rate, terrifying our children, committing random acts of violence, often selling drugs. So you have this situation in America that I never thought I'd see. The crime rate goes down for 4 years in a row in America, but the crime rate among juveniles went up for 3 of those 4 years and only started going down last year. The drug use rate goes down dramatically in America. 30% drop in cocaine use, 13% drop in overall use, but drug use among people under 18 going up. And these gangs taking over neighborhoods and neighborhoods and neighborhoods. I say, yes, we've made progress with the 3 strikes and you're out, with 100,000 police, with the Brady bill, which left every hunter in Georgia and Arkansas with his weapon, but kept 60,000 felons, fugitives, and stalkers from getting handguns. It's the right thing to do. We're making progress. But we've got more to do. And let's just talk about that. We got to first finish the job of putting 100,000 police on the street. Our opponents led the fight against it. Then they tried twice to kill it. I say we ought to finish it. It's your decision. You want some help in Macon to deal with your gang problems? You got to vote for our administration because we got a plan to give it to you. The other thing we ought to do is use the full power of the federal prosecutors to go after these violent gangs with the same laws that we used to break the mob, the mafia, years ago. They should not take our children's future away from us, and we can't let them do it. The third thing we ought to do is to remember that the best thing we can do is to save our kids in the first place and keep them out of trouble. I've worked hard to promote the Safe and Drug-Free Schools program so that there'd be a DARE officer or somebody else that young kids can look up to in every grade school in America, telling these kids drugs are wrong, drugs are dangerous, drugs can kill you. Our opponents, they tried to cut it in half and take those services away from millions of kids. You have to decide. I think you want more people telling your kids to stay off drugs and keeping them out of trouble, not fewer. It's your decision. I think I know what you want. This won't all be easy, folks. I asked this last week, and I might get booed a little by the young people here, but I'm going to say this again. Even though youth drug use has gone up dramatically in the last 4 years, 90% of our kids are still drug-free. They're good children. They're not doing the wrong thing. They deserve to be protected. But I'm going to ask those young people to make a sacrifice for their country and the kids who aren't drug-free. I'm going to ask every state in this country to make a drug test a part of driver's licensing so that we can identify the kids that are in trouble and save them before it's too late. Get them out of trouble and save them. And I think the young people will accept the challenge to help their fellow boys and girls to have a better life. But you have to decide. This is your decision. And we are going to build the best education system in the world for everybody. Today in Atlanta, I said something I want to say again. 40%, we all know education is the key to the future. But 40% of our 8-year-olds still cannot read a book on their own. If you can't read, what good is it to have a computer? How can you learn anything? I have a proposal to take AmeriCorps volunteers and other trained reading tutors, 30,000 of them, to go across this country and mobilize 1 million volunteers. The Congress finally appropriated our recommendation on work-study funds. We're going to have a couple of 100,000 more college students drawing work-study, and I'm going to try to dedicate 100,000 of those college students to teaching young children to read. I want to be able to say, think about it. By the year 2000, we want every 8-year-old in America, every single 8-year-old, to be able to hold up a book and say, I can read this all by myself. Will you help us do that? The second thing we want to do is to hook up every classroom and every library in every school in every community in America to the information superhighway by the year 2000. Computers, educational software, trained teachers, hooked up to the internet and the World Wide Web. Now, for all of you who are older like me and you're not just computer geniuses, let me tell you what that means in practical terms for your kids. It means that for the first time in the history of this country, ever, the children in the poorest inner city and rural school districts, the children in the middle class school districts, the children in the wealthiest districts, public or private, for the first time ever, will have immediate access to the same learning at the same level of quality in the same way as every other child in America. It has never happened before. Will you help us do that? And lastly, we're going to follow Georgia's lead and Governor Miller's lead and open the doors of college to every American who needs to go. Every American. We propose to give every student who will work hard and maintain decent grades access to 2 years of education after high school by simply letting you deduct dollar for dollar the cost of the typical community college tuition from your tax bill. That's our Hope Scholarship. Do right and you can have 2 years of college. We propose to let every family saved in an IRA and save and save and save, but to withdraw from that without any tax penalty if you're using that money to pay for college education or for medical costs or to buy a first-time home. And we propose to give families in this country a $10,000 tax deduction for the tuition in any kind of education after high school, anytime in America, for graduate school or undergraduate, of whatever age. Now, that's what's at stake. That's what we're going to do for the next 4 years, and it's your decision. So I ask you to go out 11 days from now and vote your convictions about your future. And I ask you to talk to those who are not here and tell them that if you stay home, you're voting too. You're making a decision. The idea that you don't make a decision as a citizen if you don't vote is not true. You do. So just think about this beautiful day and look around this crowd. And let me leave you with this last thought. How long have we seen America divided by politicians at election time for their own benefit? How long have we seen people pitted against one another? I will say again, the most important thing we have to remember is that we are all better off when we all have a chance, not a guarantee, but a chance to make the most of our God-given abilities. We are all better off. We are all better off when we help each other have the tools to build strong families and strong futures and strong communities. So I say to you, I want you in 11 days for Bill Clinton and Al Gore, for Max Cleland, for Jim Wiggins, for Sanford Bishop, for the people that are interested in building a bridge to the 21st century wide enough and strong enough to make sure our best days are still ahead, to go out there and help us build that bridge. Thank you, and God bless you all.